Good morning. Today is Sunday, December 31st, 2023, and this is the weekly Bitcoin price forecast. So basically seeing where Bitcoin went in the past week and where it could potentially go in the future. So I skipped last week. Last week was Christmas. It was the 24th. I was traveling and doing all that. So nothing really happened anyway, considering the holidays and everyone traveling. But we'll get back this week and see what happened. So of course, this is the last day of the year. It's been a long year. It's been a very long year. A lot has happened for sure. But this is the last week of the year. We've seen a lot of movement. And December is looking like we've really at this point had 4 positive months, right? So we've had that rare positive September. I mean, September is typically the worst month of the year, but we had a positive month there. You had October, which is like just a crazy rally month. You had November, and December was 12.5% increase. So this was 8.5% in, what was that? November, and then 12.5% in December. So, I mean, it's pretty good. Pretty good. I cannot complain about that at all. That's very good to set us up going into the new year. And at this point, we're at the point where I think Bitcoin ETF decisions they're bound to come out. I think the final approval date is January 11th. So we're within the 2-week period at this point. So when those get approved, and I'm saying like when they do, because it's at this point, they don't have a reason not to. When those get approved, you'll have a huge demand spike of these institutional buyers getting into the market and buying Bitcoins. I think I saw something where like Michael Saylor over this year, I think he bought like 38% of all the Bitcoins mined this year, which is like a crazy statistic. So, I mean, you think about it, if he can do that and he's one company and he's not, MicroStrategy isn't even like a huge company. If they can do that, imagine what happens when other companies catch on. So the thing is, you want to start getting in early. You want to get in and be able to front run these major institutions and corporations. So, this is your call. Go ahead and buy some Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, crypto, whatever it might be. This is the weekly chart. If we take a look at it here, like I said, last week, nothing really happened. We're going into Christmas holidays. What we're seeing right here is a pretty decent consolidation right here. That's really been happening since the beginning of December. So you had this major run up, and really we've just been consolidating sideways since then. We'll take a look here, turn the drawings on. I will take the indicators off for right now. I don't need the moving averages. So as you can see right now, this is 2022. So yeah, this is the start of 2023. So a year ago, basically, we were right here. We were down at $16,000 for one Bitcoin. And really all we've done this year is be in this channel. Like we were in this channel for the entire year, all the way up until December. So, up and down and up and down. And finally we broke out. And it looks like we're retesting at this point before we can go a little bit higher. And like I said earlier, if we're taking a look here, you have a consolidation pattern right here. And that'll get a little bit more clear once we get down to like the daily portion. But to me, that signals, okay, a breakout of some sorts. Maybe it's an initial breakout down to the downside. We have a little bit of a demand zone here on the daily chart. We could come down here and then shoot back up, or we could just, again, get a little bit farther in this cone. At that point, maybe you're January 15th. Looks like that's somewhere near the end of this cone, but we'll see. We'll see how that ends up playing out. The ETF happens before January 15th, so we'll see. This support and resistance zone that got broken right here. This is a long-term one. So if we're talking about significant moments throughout the year, October 23rd, that was a very significant day because that was the day that we got up to about $35,000 before, settling at about 34. But breaking this was like what we had been talking about all this time. So, we got up here to 30,000 and, we stayed here, boom. And then we came down here and I said, like, we're not going to go anywhere until we break this $32,000 range. And considering we did it in one day, that was significant. And you see that we never pulled back after that. And I don't think that we will. We will not get back down to 30 something thousand because now at this point, we have other levels of support, of demand that are holding price up. So, I mean, this is the weekly chart, but on the daily chart, you do have several points of demand that are here to kind of keep price above these levels. And matter of fact, even here, you broke, and this is now going to serve as, this is a long-term resistance kind of, not even long-term resistance. This is more of a support zone that we had right here. Resistance zone. That got broken. Now we're above it. Now, like I said, we're pretty much consolidating. We got a couple things going on. You're consolidating here. So up, down, ping pong. You also have this upward channel that could serve to retest. You could come back down here and then continue going. You could even break down a little bit and come back here for the daily zone. But, who knows? We will see how that goes. Like I said, you have this kind of ranging motion here. It gets narrower and narrower. And at a certain point, it does have to break out in some direction. And the thing about these motions like this is that when it happens, the tighter that this band gets, the tighter that this coils, the more explosive the next move ends up becoming in either direction. But at this point, all the momentum is to the upside. So, I mean, my bet would not be to the downside. There are people there were people when we were down here who were hoping that we were going to go to 20K or 12K or whatever when the momentum for the entire year had been to the upside. So, to me, that doesn't make a ton of sense. But, I was saying here, like the Bears had in about 6 months, they had 6 months to where they couldn't break to below 20K. Actually, they couldn't even break below 25K for about 6 months. All this motion right here, they couldn't break below 25K, and then eventually they had to go back up to the upside. So once they did that, it was just a true continuation. So, I mean, you had all this movement right here. And then finally, once you got here to the upside, it took a little pause here for a second at 38K, which is something that we talked about for a while. 38K could be the next point where you see like this type of consolidation, right? So it did. You came with 38K, drop down. Came up one more time, drop down. Came up, drop down. Came up, drop down. But as you see, it started to it was creating higher lows. So you had a low right here, higher low, higher low, higher low. And then eventually, it starts to get this rocket ship that just goes completely to the upside in that manner. So again, now we're in this consolidation range, up, down, up, down, up, down. But again, you're creating these higher lows. And really, I mean, it's kind of relatively equal highs if I'm being honest right here. You could pull this up a little bit and talk about the wicks, but really, if we're talking about closes, like we're coming up to here and then kind of pausing. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see where we're kind of hitting at right now. I'm excited. I'm definitely excited about next year. I think this year was the prep year. Bitcoin ran 165%, which is, in all honesty, an average year for Bitcoin. That's not, one of the banner years. Like, it's had 400% years, 800% years, 1600% years. And again, those were in the earlier days. But still 165%, regardless for a 1 year period, that's a fantastic return. But relatively for Bitcoin, that is somewhat average, in my opinion. So let's see where the moving averages are for the daily chart. See where we have some type of support. So you have the 50 moving average that has crossed over this line. So, I mean, again, could come back down here and bounce back up. You have 38K, which, potentially could be retested. Again, that was a decent level that it paused at. So worst case, I could say we could come back down to 38K, just to, create some liquidity grabs and then go back up to the upside. You may see and here's the thing that we haven't had, in recent history is, Bitcoin, you've had these huge accounts, these whale accounts, they call them, that have, thousands or tens of thousands of Bitcoin. They can move the price very easily. But once you start getting these institutions, they will too be able to manipulate price, just a bit. So it won't be, you may see sometimes dramatic spikes down and going back up. And those are going to be liquidity grabs so that they can get in even more. So they'll dump price down and then have their buy orders right here and then buy it all the way back up too. So yeah, we'll see. That'll be interesting. It will be interesting. Let's make this tighter. Let's see what happens if we go to just base it only off of closes. Well, I guess the top side, that'll still be wicks, but move that here. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, again, there's not, at current time, there's not a ton to talk about, as opposed to, what is really, it's more so looking forward to what's going to happen next year. Right now, we're in this zone very much so. If we look at this, there's not a ton to read right here. We've been in this down slope, and then we're just bouncing in between these areas. And then once we break out, we'll break out and we'll keep going. But my bet is to the upside. Even if we do go down initially, that's fine. I don't care. We'll go back up to the upside, and then we'll just keep on going. Next year, we are going to hit 100K. I mean, if I was a betting man, I would bet a large sum of money that we're going to hit 100K next year. I think that's easy money. That's easy money next year that I say that we hit 100K, because you got the halving, you got the ETF, you have the presidential election, you have, if you look at global liquidity cycles, we have liquidity return to the markets and whatnot. It's just going to be an interesting time. And I mean, this is the time to be prepared for sure. You're in a fantastic position, even at 40K. Because let's say at some point Bitcoin hits 250K, which was my prediction. It still is my prediction, 250K before the end of 2025. If you get in here at 42,000, what's 250K divided by 40? What is that? That's like a 6X or 5X, 6X, something like that. That's still good. That's still fantastic. I mean, most people aren't getting 600% returns really anywhere. So, I mean, if you look at that, even to 100K, you've just doubled your money and then some. So, in my opinion, Bitcoin is one of the safer investments that you can have out there. So yeah. Okay, that's really all I have today. Like I said, we're ranging at this point. No real stuff to talk about majorly. So again, this has been Chris Talks Crypto. If you want to check out any resources, go to christalkscrypto.com. Again, thank you guys for following me throughout the year. Definitely been a fun ride. So I will see you guys on the moon. Take care and Happy New Year.